Hi there, it's Thursday, day 11 of your Detox and Reset. If you don't know what I'm talking about, then just click on the link in the video notes below and that will take you to the page on my website which explains everything about this 31-day Detox and Reset program for your health and wellness following the recommendations of the Ancestral health model. And for those of you who are doing the reset today, we're continuing the theme of sugar and sweetness and sweeteners, and we're looking at fructose, which is really quite fascinating. So let's get into it. We believe that fructose is healthy because it comes from fruit. But like all foods, once it's altered and refined, these sugars are transformed into substances that aren't good for you. Right? And fresh fruit can be problematic as well. So what you need to know, what we need to know about fructose, it's again, yeah, it is. It's just really interesting, this, and unless we're actually informed about it, we don't know this stuff. Sucrose, glucose, and fructose are all simple carbohydrates, right? So which means that they're all sugars, but the body responds differently to each of them. We know that glucose is the body's preferred energy source. Yeah, so remember that whenever we eat anything, the body will burn the glucose first, okay? And we know that when blood sugar levels are too high, insulin is released to balance our blood sugar levels. Fructose, however, has some special characteristics all of its own. Although fructose occurs naturally in many fruits and vegetables, it isn't the body's first choice of energy. Fructose is only metabolized in the liver, and it produces much more fat than glucose, right? It's lipogenic. But fructose stimulates neither insulin, which is the blood sugar regulator, nor does it stimulate leptin, our hunger and energy regulator. And this means that fructose is dangerous. It's very sweet and it's very seductive, but the body-brain doesn't receive the messages about when to stop consuming it or when blood sugar levels need to be rebalanced. And this means that it's easy to keep eating and to keep drinking even though we've gone way beyond healthy blood sugar levels. And I've put an image here in the email of, kids, adolescents, drinking fizzy drinks because this is a huge problem in today's society. Fructose in the form of high fructose corn syrup is a common ingredient in carbonated drinks, and it's found throughout the range of industrialized foods. And the global increase in hypertension, heart disease, obesity, and diabetes is directly concurrent with the increase in fructose consumption. Now, don't confuse fresh fruit with fructose. Fresh fruit is much more complex than pure fructose. Right? So fruit obviously contains synergistic combinations of vitamins and minerals and antioxidants and phytonutrients. The problem with fructose is that the manufacturing process has taken it out of its natural context, leaving it devoid of nutrients. And number two, it leads to excessive consumption. The problem with fresh fruit, and we saw this yesterday as well, fresh fruit is good for you because it's sweet but because it's sweet and delicious, it can keep the sugar dragon alive and kicking. And we want to keep the sugar dragon in check forever. Right? And just remember that the fruit we're eating now is very different from the fruit of our ancestors. It's bigger, it's sweeter, it's brighter, and it's available all year round. And this was a big problem for my husband, for Fiorenzo, before we sort of started this journey with Ancestral Health. He was eating so many apples a day. It was incredible. And he was just like, he thought he was healthy because he was eating so much fruit, but it was just keeping the sugar dragon alive. And he was just like, yeah, it was just like, blood sugar levels all over the place because of that. Now, the glycemic load of fruit, the glycemic load indicates how an average serving of food will raise blood sugar levels. And so for the fruits, there's a list of fruits here listed from lowest to highest. Just have a look at that and it will give you a good idea as to how much fructose we're consuming when we eat fruit. Sucrose instead is a common table sugar. It's derived from sugarcane or sugar beets, and fruits and vegetables also contain sucrose. Once consumed, sucrose, because it's a disaccharide, right? Di means two. It's broken down into its individual units of glucose and fructose. So sucrose, you've got your glucose and you've got your fructose. Glucose will activate the insulin response and it will activate the hormonal responses there, but the fructose component won't. Okay, and the excess energy, right? The excess energy from both the glucose and the fructose will be turned into fat. So yeah, just read through this again if you need to assimilate it. Realize that fructose, even though it comes from a natural source, is not necessarily benign, and it can be really dangerous, especially fructose that's taken out of its natural form, especially things like high fructose corn syrup. So this is why we need to get into the habit of reading the labels, or even better, buying food that's so fresh that it doesn't even have labels. That's the best thing we can do. How to regulate blood sugar levels. So to regulate our consumption of sugar, our glycemic load, our hormones, our blood sugar levels, and I need to read this again because it's actually written here in Italian, so I need to sort of translate it. To regulate our consumption of sugar, our blood sugar levels, our hormones, and to optimize our health, we need to do two things. We need to do three things. We need to re-educate our taste buds, which can happen really quickly. It's probably already happening if you're following the program. We need to decrease the amount of sweeteners that we use, or not use them at all. And we need to reduce the number of times each day that we're reaching for sugars and for fruit and for sweet foods. Okay, now one of the great advantages of adhering to the paleo diet is that within a very short time our sense of taste does change, and the supercharged sweetness of industrial foods and sugary drinks and all of that stuff will just become sickly sweet. Okay, so trust in the process here. And what you'll find in a very short time is that the perfect balance of sweetness and deliciousness will be found in the natural sweetness of fresh fruit and the delicate sweetness of homemade desserts. Okay, so as we said yesterday, we're not talking never, we're just talking get it under control and learn how to regulate it in order to optimize your health. Now in the section on sweet here, I've put in some information here about muscovado sugar. I'm okay with muscovado sugar. If you read through this, you'll find that muscovado sugar, it's a really raw sugar. It's so unrefined that it's still dense and moist, and it's dark and it's coarse. And because of that, it retains many of the nutrients of the sugar cane, okay? And it's actually really interesting. If you look there, it contains phosphorus and calcium and magnesium and potassium and iron in quite high levels. So of course, we're never not saying going overboard with it, but that's what I have in my pantry. You'll find that that's what I use in all of my recipes when we're talking about paleo baked goods or paleo treats. So have a read through that, and if you haven't already bought some, go and find some muscovado sugar for your pantry. And movement exercises, a little bit of movement recommendations there. Don't forget to do a little bit of journaling, write in your journal, keep your diary, and maintain your connection to the process. And I hope you've booked your private coaching session with me, and I'll see you tomorrow. Okay, ciao, ciao.